Hello, everybody, and happy World Kindness Day. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really thrilled to be discussing kindness, a topic that I know that we all feel really passionately about. Being in lockdown, unfortunately, we can't all be together, but that makes me no less delighted to welcome you all on Zoom from our bedrooms and kind of homes and places of work. So I'll introduce you all briefly and then we can get into our discussion, which is going to focus on kindness in the online world today. I mean, you kind of barely need any introduction, you gorgeous faces, but to go around. So Alex Scott, MBE, you're an award-winning broadcaster and former professional footballer, captain of Arsenal and England Centurion, and then you retired in 2017 and have since gone on to become the first female football pundit of a World Cup for the BBC, which is pretty awesome, yes. And now present the One Show and more sports presenting on BBC and Sky. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of you on our screens. It's very exciting. And next guest, Denise Lewis, again, barely needs an introduction, Olympic gold winning heptathlete. You're a presenter and a broadcaster too, and president of the Commonwealth Games in England, and also a mum of 4, which is just deserves another medal in itself. And recent star of ITV1's Don't Rock the Boat, which we've just been saying, I don't know how you did that show. So full respect to you. And finally, Natalie Pinkham, Sky Sports Formula One presenter and reporter, a trailblazer in a traditionally male-dominated sport, plus podcast host, superstar podcast host, and all-round sort of beacon of positivity and kindness. So thank you all very much. And hello, favourites, I have to add, often appearing on our pages. Yeah. Thank you for your support of Hello and our Hello to Kindness campaign. So we're all gathered here because we've got lots to say on the subject of kindness. So we'll just get straight onto it. And we've made the focus of kindness in the online world because it feels especially relevant right now, you know, in this year where there's this kind of always on kind of culture. Here we are talking to each other through a screen as well. And this panel will go out on social media. And we'll look to discuss also how we can work towards and actively encourage a kinder environment online. So do you want to start by telling me a bit about your experiences, kind of positive and negative in the online world? And perhaps if I come to you first, Alex.
For me, on the online world, I would say that I've had kind of a different experience with it. I've had the good, I've had the bad of it. I think when I played over in America, when I was like 23, it was a way of connecting with fans, showing them my personality, showing them different sort of things. So I've always loved social media and the platform and what it can do. I think what I've experienced the last 2 years from when I transitioned from sport into broadcasting was the dark, the negative side of people constantly trolling, the abuse that I was getting, and realizing how much that got to me. And I got into a dark place myself and learning how to cope with that and overcome that. But I take positives from it, to be honest, because it pushed me into a place in terms of pushing me into therapy, which has now made me grow as a human being and become a better person. So out of such a negative situation, I'm still looking at the positives that it's actually given me in my life.
Yeah, gosh. So did the therapy then help you to build that resilience as well, to become so confident in yourself that these people couldn't get to you anymore?
Yeah, and I think it's bringing back realizing that it's a small percentage of people going out of their way to do that. And I think realizing that there is so many people that are rooting for me and backing me as well, but necessarily don't go out of their way online to say, do you know what? I really enjoyed watching you today, or you were really good. And I think it's just sometimes, but to be honest, I hold my hands up. I remember as an athlete, I'm sure Denise, you'll say as well, as soon as I would analyze myself, it would always be, oh, what the negatives. It's like reminding yourself, actually, well, you know, I did that right in the game, or I did this, or patting yourself on the back. I think it's a mentality sometimes. We're always quick to give the negative instead of giving someone a positive first.
And can be especially prevalent in women as well, you know, not having that self-confidence. Did you find that, Denise, what Alex is saying about the negatives?
I definitely think Alex draws a fantastic parallel between the sporting brain and how you deal with the trolls. I mean, my experience hasn't been as graphic and soul destroying, because from the very onset of joining social media, I already was just very hesitant about that world. You know, I was a very private person, and so I didn't want to expose myself, but learning that there are probably 50% of people that really think you're wonderful and fantastic, but equally you've got to accept there might be another 50% that don't.
And so that's just your household.
Yes, yeah. And so I try to keep on that central line, and don't really ingest that information about the negativity, because I'm a bit longer in the tooth, Alex, you all know. And so I've learned to deal through my athletic phase about criticism and taking on board the good parts of criticism, but very much leaving behind the ones that make you feel miserable. You know, I had one instance where I had to critique, I was writing an article for a well-known newspaper and had to make comment about a fellow athlete who was competing. I was literally, as I said, writing a column. And I remember the online headline to that piece put a total spin on that article, and the abuse I got from the fans of this particular athlete. And I tell you now, the article was fair, it was constructive, giving a balanced opinion about her, the stuff that she was going through as an athlete. And I remember almost having an anxiety attack reading through all of these awful things that people were saying from a particular country, actually, it was from South Africa, about me, my family, me as a Black woman, and I couldn't breathe. And I said, I never want to feel like that again, because as Alex said, it's sometimes not even just that moment. It has a long effect on your wellness, how you then perceive yourself and how others might perceive you, because you're just so frightened to say anything. And that's never a good place.
No,
it's what you just said is absolutely the one, because I knew I was fresh into broadcasting. I didn't want to see like the one that I'm complaining, I'm an angry Black woman, I can't take it. So then all this emotion, I was just sitting with it, and I'd take it home, and then I'd be in a place where actually I'm lonely. I don't want to put this, I don't want to tell my family or friends, because I don't want to bring that negative energy to them. So it was just this circle of loneliness and being in my head. And like Denise said, if it was constructive criticism, I'm used to that as an athlete. Give me that all day, because I want it to fuel me to make me better. But it was just all the abuse and the anxiety and the threats of what they're going to do to me. And I was just like, that's the side where you're just like, seriously? Like, why do people want to do that?
Nobody has a right to do that, do they? It's really, really upsetting and very hard. And did you have a wake-up call then? Was there a moment when you just thought, I can't deal with this anymore, I cannot read these comments, I'm feeling lonely at home, I need to do something about it?
Learned that, say, like I was a functioning depressive, really, because I was going to work, a place that I absolutely loved and gave me this energy, and I love my job, I'm so grateful for it. But then I would take everything, as soon as I'd come off air, I'd take everything home. And like I said, I was on my own. And then I'd turn to drink to try and sleep and switch off from it. And it was this repeat pattern where I was just like, you know what, I'm losing myself. This is not me, because I'm allowing them to get to me. So then, then I ended up in therapy. And like I said, I'm so thankful for it, because I've learned so much about me and coping mechanisms and taking the good.
Gosh, well done. I know, Natalie, you care an awful lot about this as well, seeing, you know, how it can beat somebody down, wear them down.
I mean, honestly, I can't quite believe what I'm hearing when I hear that you've had to have therapy for it. And Denise, you talk about not being able to breathe, having anxiety attacks. I mean, this is just fundamentally wrong, that just because you're in the public eye that you're exposed to this kind of thing. And I have to say, it's where I'm immensely proud of Sky Sports at the moment, because they're very robust in this program to support anyone who's on screen, anyone who's involved. They're so committed to not just diversity within the workplace, but supporting those people within that workplace. And really what we should be doing here is not giving you therapy. We should be getting to the source of the problem, which is this projection of hate, which has just no place in this world. And it makes me upset and angry and defensive of you that you've had to go through all of that simply because you're an incredibly talented, both of you incredibly talented athletes who've now gone into broadcasting. And thank God you have. Thank God you've been brave enough to fight this and push through and come out the other side still smiling. Because if you hadn't have done that, then little girls growing up wouldn't have relatable role models they would be able to look to emulate in their lifetime. So thank you, for starters, for fighting this, because it sounds like you've both been through a hell of a time.
Don't get me wrong. I do believe that I cope better now. I've never sort of experienced what Alex has gone through. I mean, that is soul destroying, and it gives me knots in my stomach just thinking that you as an individual had to deal with all of that. But you do get better, and you do understand that it is a very small percentage of people that are, their sole goal for being on social media is to put a spanner in your works, in your day and in your life, that moment. And you just can't be defined by that. You have to try to, as you said, find those coping strategies, realize that it's nothing to do with you. If it was another woman, I would say this, in your position, you could be getting the same thing. And to realize that it's not personal.
It is a projection of their own insecurities and issues, but we do need to try and heal. There's so much anxiety, paranoia. There's such a disconnect at the moment in the middle of all the COVID crisis. We have to try to reconnect people and talk about this and try to heal division. It's quite interesting because I actually feel like the world is made up of communities, obviously, and I feel very lucky to be in an F1 community that in the main is very supportive. Even people that you've obviously never met, they kind of got your back. They're kind of like, yeah, you're one of us, you're with us, we'll protect you, don't worry. And it wasn't until I spoke publicly in support of Lewis Hamilton's incredibly strong stance for BLM, and the fact that he just hasn't let this rest, that he's continuing to make people feel just a little bit uncomfortable enough to force change, which is, by the way, seismic. This is going to be a watershed moment for our sport, which, by the way, is still 88% male and 91% white. That's unacceptable in 2020. But because he's dared to speak up, he has come in for so much abuse. And it wasn't until I supported him in a piece in the Telegraph that I suddenly had a very brief insight into his world. And presumably what you've encountered, Alex, is that there's this tsunami of abuse, racist abuse. And actually, do you know what? There's a little part of me that was like, you know what? I must be doing something right if I'm annoying the racists.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Of anyone who I want to annoy, it would be them, Yeah. By the way, you guys have got it wrong here. And there is a train moving in a very strong, determined, permanent direction. And you should be getting on it, not trying to be jumping in the way of it. Because the world is changing, and let's grow together, for goodness sake.
And there's so much opportunity for goodness on social media, isn't there? I mean, look at somebody like Marcus Rashford and the amazing sort of change that he has seen through, galvanizing this campaign on his social media. I think it's also that lack of accountability online. I think now the online world is such a part of our real world. We're online as much as we are, well, probably more than we are walking down the street talking to people, certainly for this month at least. And we've got to see the two a bit more closely linked. And I think accountability, so that there aren't fake profiles and people, setting up an account, blasting somebody with all this negativity and bullying behavior online, that you have to be accountable for your own profile, could help things.
Definitely. And actually, Rosie, I remember talking to you before about this amazing therapist called Julia Samuel, who is bereavement counsellor. But I talked to her at great length after my friend Caroline Flack, a friend of a lot of us, passed away. And one thing she told me, which was really incredible advice in a way, and it's something that I know that Flacky didn't do, was separate herself from the persona that was on social media. And so Julia's advice was, look, just try to keep you, the real you, in a very safe space where you feel protected by your closest family and friends, and put out there what you feel comfortable with being fully public. If you give too much of yourself to that, then you feel exposed and you feel vulnerable and you feel attacked. But it's almost like creating an alter ego in a way, you know, a bit like Beyonce on stage. She only puts out prepared to.
It is. Yeah, there's something really in that. I love that. Yeah, keeping that bit to yourself, which, especially if you're in the public eye with all that additional pressure, you know, is very important. But also for young girls as well, for teenagers. I can't imagine how hard it must be growing up in that environment now, when you get home from school and you don't pick up the house phone like we used to do and talk to your friends. You know, you're bombarded from all sides with social media.
You do, but it's, you know, our children aren't taught, you know, to how to use social media. They do see their people they look up to, their heroes, if you like, and they see them projecting themselves and seemingly giving all, bearing all, whether it's flesh or comment or opinion, and they think that is just the way to behave. You know, I have an 18-year-old daughter, and thankfully she does strike a good balance. Because I try to encourage her to be herself. You know, she looks at me and I'm very mindful about what I put out there. And so I hope there is some synergy and she understands that, oh, my mom doesn't act like that. So maybe we're closer to finding a happy balance. But, you know, even in adults, we always think that that's what our brands want. They want you to give all. They want you to share all. And it is not easy finding and striking that balance.
What about you, Alex? Go on. Yeah.
What Denise touched on there, I think I've always been very conscious of, even when I've gone into broadcasting, showing people the real me. Like, I'm still that girl that grew up in the East End of London. This is how I talk, and that's the representation of actually the real world, even though, like, I get stick for not pronouncing words properly sometimes. But I'm like, do you know what? This is how I've grown up, but this is me. I'm not going to sit there and try to pretend to be someone else or something that I'm not. And I'm very true to myself in giving people or showing them that this is me and I'm happy with how I am, and you should be happy in yourself as well.
And that's what's so endearing, you know, that's what people want. They soon see through fraud, you know, they want you to be authentic. I guess it's about just protecting yourself to a certain extent, because we're never going to, well, I hope that we do get on top of the troll issue.
You're right. It's that fine balance between authenticity and like being careful what you're projecting as well, sadly, you know.
But it's also resilience. We've said it, we touched on the word earlier, but creating your own resilience around you, that protective barrier that I think sometimes we have more. I can speak as an athlete. I used to have that little barrier around me, you know, because I was headlong focused on performance and technical detail, that sometimes you may lose when you transition into something where it's new, like broadcasting again. Where do you start?
The funny thing is, though, Denise, don't you think you get a level of resilience and confidence and calm when you become a mother? I think, like, I've talked to you about this before as well, Rosie, is that I definitely care less now about what people think of me than I ever have, because I've got different priorities with my two kids. And suddenly I kind of see the world in a different way. And to your earlier point, Rosie, you know, that makes me very scared for them, because I know it's taken me to get to my late 30s, early 40s, to get to that stage of confidence. But if social media had been around in my 20s, I dread to think how I would have coped.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you know, I know.
That's the same for so many young girls.
And Alex, you've had to sort of grow up a bit more in that environment, with sort of getting it from all sides, both as a sports personality and as a broadcaster.
Yeah, I think for me it is finding how we talk about the balance of it, because I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm not a sob story. I'm doing fine. Like Denise says about resilience, I can push on. And I think for me is speaking out about it, so people actually know that your words can actually damage people and hurt people when they do go home, and making people understand that, but actually changing the narrative on it, that actually, do you know what? You're not going to win, because if anything, you're giving me more energy to succeed, be more successful, push on and make this change happen.
Yeah.
So for me, it's striking that balance. So every time at the moment there is a headline about me, it refers to, oh, Alex's trolls and the abuse and everything. But I want to change that. Look, I'm still going. I'm still pushing on. I'm still strong. I'm a strong, independent woman, and I'm happy with who I am. So it's just like trying to make people realize that their words do hurt, but hey, there's like strong people out here.
And that's why it's so important and so admirable, you know, to use your platform in this way for good, because, you know, if this helps, you know, just one sort of teenage girl feel that she can find that confidence to rise above it, then that is so important, isn't it? And also why I care so passionately about kindness and all of, you know, what that brings as well to the giver of the kindness as well as the receiver. You know, when you give kindness to somebody or perform a kind act for them, you know, it builds your own self-confidence. It makes you feel great. You know, there are so many benefits that you can't lose, really. What about talking about kindness away from the trolls for a little bit and the kind of the feeling that kindness sort of gives you? Have you got stories about being on the receiving end of kindness? What about you, Denise?
I am very fortunate, and I know it. I receive kindness on a weekly basis. I get a lot of kindness from my fellow moms. I would not have been able to survive the last decade, if not more, without the support of my fellow parents taking on elements of my parental duties when I'm either at work, you know, running late, supporting me, that infrastructure that you build around you. Without those moms, and I'll be eternally grateful for them keeping me sane and keeping my family ticking over for the moments where I've had to be doing something else, work related. You know, very simple one was very recently just after lockdown, where we were allowed to go out. I went fishing with the family and to a place just outside Oxford called Diva Springs. And it's a beautiful lake. I was just walking along the pathway and having a nosy in someone's garden, because I'm at an age where I look at gardens, you see.
Yeah.
And what can I actually, you know, put it in mine? And this got chatting to one of the ladies who lives there, and I left her, went back to the family, and she walked herself down and handed me a little white envelope full of seeds that I could go and plant in my garden. Out of nowhere.
How kind.
And that was just wonderful. It was just wonderful. And it made me feel good. And my faith restored in humanity after the year we've had, you know, just some simple little things. It doesn't cost much, but you can make a world of difference to someone else.
Yeah, that's a lovely story. And Natalie, what about you? Kindness.
Well, I mean, my mum's always said to me from, you know, my earliest memories of my mum saying to me that kindness is the most important trait, but everything else kind of follows from kindness, and that's the first thing you've got to look for in a partner, and that's the first thing you've got to instill in your kids. And it's, you know, it's sort of this trait that kind of swills over here somewhere, and everyone's much more focused on ambition and, you know, creativity and drive. But all of that kind of comes from a good place. You know, you only build that confidence if you've got a sort of foundation of kindness first. And that's why I love what you do, Rosie. And I think that the Hello to Kindness is such an important movement, because that's really what it is. It's not a single act. It's a movement. It's a mindset, something that we should all instill and pass forward. I love this idea of, you know, doing a special thing for somebody else and passing
forward the kindness.
A friend of mine was with me. This is sort of pre-lockdown, and we were just filling up the car with fuel, and he said, "I'm just going to pay for the other person's fuel." I went, What do you mean pay for that? No, it's a really good karma thing. I said, well, how much fuel? You don't even know what.
Maybe they're driving a huge lorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
But I loved it. So he did. He put like 40 quid. I mean, honestly, the guy at the petrol station thought he was totally mad, but he gave an additional 40 quid and said, that's for that guy's fuel behind me. And you could see, I was like craning out of the car window to see the guy's reaction. And you saw this guy go, what? I'm like,
it's like magic, isn't it? It's like a sprinkling a bit of magic.
There you go.
And it can be so small, because often, you know, I've got really into this lovely habit now of often, you know, when you meet up with a friend or something, or even you see somebody in the street and you think, oh God, I love their coat, or you look really healthy today. Instead of just thinking it in your head, just say it out loud, because often we do think these things, but we don't think to say, God, your eye makeup looks lovely today. How did you do it? You know, and that really can make someone's day.
Because you know I was doing, you know that isn't true for me, because I was literally doing it as we were coming on the call.
It looks lovely, Natalie.
Well, I do that. I actually do that.
Yeah.
I like to recognise positivity, and it's part of my DNA. I love women and I love supporting women. And so that for me, this woman walking down, she had a fabulous coat on. And I said, you are so rocking that coat. And I could see that she was kind of a bit, you know, not flummoxed, but just didn't know what to say, but took it. And this broad smile just erupted on her face. And, you know,
and that made you feel great as well.
Made me feel great.
That's why it's just the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and
you like, let me get to the point. Can I have the coat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a discount on that. Yeah. What about you, Alex? Has there been kind of someone that sort of within your career or personal life that kind of showed you kindness and gave you that sort of boost when you needed it?
I want to pick up on Natalie's story, because that actually happened to me. Not the petrol. I was in America when I played in Boston. And then every Saturday before a game, we'd go for brunch, a group of us on the team. And then this one Saturday, finished my brunch, would like ask for the bill. And then the guy come over, he was like, no, Alex, it's been taken care of. And I was like, no, seriously, I've not paid yet. And he's like, no, there's a guy that comes in every Saturday and he decides to pay someone's bill. And today he's paid bill. And same thing, I was like, well, where is he? I need to go and thank him. And he was like, and he said he doesn't ever want to be known. It's his way of paying it forward. And that has always stuck with me. And it's my way. Like, I always try and do things. And Denise, what you said, I'm all about energies, positive energy, having good people around me. And when people are talking, like trying to show them the positive side. Okay, this has happened, but what about this? And trying to change their mindset sometimes. I really suck in people's energies. So the positive that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Oh, great. So what kind act, because we've been talking a lot on World Kindness Day at Hello about what kind acts we're going to pay forward and kind of commit to, because obviously World Kindness Day, it's been lovely to make lots of noise on this important day, but it's not just about one day, it's about every single day, you know, for the rest of our life, to lead a better life. So what kind of kind acts are you going to commit to going forward? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can start if you like. I think it's something I've already been doing, so does that count? No, that's fine.
People don't know what kindness means, so it's just great to share these ideas.
Again, just a very simple thing. My best friend, she had lost her mom to COVID, and immediately after that, I knew she was struggling. And I have been speaking to her or sending her a message. She sends me a message pretty much every day since. And it has transformed the way she thinks about herself. It's got her slowly out of a very, very dark place. And I will just send her something uplifting, picture of a rose emerging from the concrete cracks in the road or something like that, to symbolic to say that you will emerge a new person again. You know, this dark cloud, this weight that you're feeling, the pain will go one day, but just take your time, one day at a time, and you will heal. And so she thanked me very recently for just spending that moment in my day where I acknowledge her. And it makes it feel so much better.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. And what about you, Pinks?
Well, I'm going to start by buying Denise that coat, because I think you can you know what, I had a theory the other day that I want to deal with the trolls in a slightly different way. And as I say, I'm lucky I haven't really received a huge amount of it. But I know you're not supposed to engage with trolls. I know you're not supposed to bite back, but I do think I love what James Blunt does when he gets trolled. Turn it into something funny. So take a negative and make it a positive. And I think we can apply that to anything in life. But I did get this one tweet recently that said, I hate Natalie Pinkham. And I just wrote back going, oh, it's such a shame because I really like you. And she wrote back going, OMG, like this. And then I sent one back, like a sort of smiling emoji. And she said, look, I'm sorry. It was my mates, I was just being whatever, weird about you. And so I then said, okay, do you want to come to the F1 show? To come to the live recording of the show. So she came down. She turns out she was 16 and she just was having a crap day, and so she'd projected that onto me by saying she hated me. Anyway, she came down with all her mates to the F1 show, and now me and her are little pals on. So
that is incredible.
That is. You kissed it with kindness, and it worked.
I do think because we've always got an expression in our family: kill them with kindness. Like if you can turn a negative situation into a positive one, just don't sink to their levels. Don't, as hard as it is, don't let it get to you, and try to go back with more love, and hopefully love prevails. Yeah,
smile through it. What about you, Alex?
What's that?
I was going to say, and you've got a coat coming. You've got a coat on the way now, Denise.
I know.
Thank you. Number size 12.
Yeah.
For me, I've always been passionate to work with kids in disadvantaged areas. And last year I managed to, through Arsenal Football Club, I did some work and they gave me a box. And I was like, I'm lucky, like I get to go to games, like, so what can I do? So I went to a charity in South London and took these kids. I went to see them on Christmas Eve and took them a load of football boots and kit. But then I arranged for them to come into the Arsenal box and see a game. And the feeling, I actually got really emotional and kind of cried. Not because I just saw how happy and just that one little opportunity, how much it meant to them and how it would stick with them for the rest of their lives. And then since then, in the pipeline, I've been trying to work up with, I'm lucky enough to have sponsorships and kind of commercial deals. But my thing is, I want to give kids an opportunity so they believe that there's a space for them and that they can if they go after that opportunity. And mainly because of what I've been going through, I think having a mentor is so important. Someone who you can turn to and have honest feedback from. So I'm putting a thing in place where I want to give a scholarship, but then that person then elevates and helps the next person through. So it's always how we're talking about paying it forward. So at the moment now, I've got in the pipeline and I can't wait.
Oh, well, that's great. And you're going to inspire so many young people by doing that. Oh, how lovely. I feel really uplifted with this chat. I've really, really enjoyed it. And it's just really nice to kindness is a choice at the end of the day. You can choose whether you act with kindness or you can choose not to. You can choose whether to buy that coat for Denise or not, Natalie. No pressure.
That's what we're doing, guys. Only love.
Yeah, exactly. Only love. Yeah, and you've really helped to spread that message of positivity, and that by being kind really can make a difference to somebody's life, and set them up on a course that they might not have felt was available to them beforehand. So thank you for, spreading this positivity and kindness and everything that you do, and for joining me today and helping us sort of bring this message to a wider audience at Hello. And here's to celebrating kindness every day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Well done, everyone.
Thank you. That was so lovely.